Shalom and welcome to Challenging Torah, a project of the Malibu Jewish Center and Synagogue. We dedicate this Torah portion to those who have survived Hurricane Harvey. Chapter 22 in Deuteronomy begins by saying, "If you see your fellow's ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your fellow. If your fellow does not live near you, or you do not know who he is, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your fellow human being comes and claims it. Then you must also give it back to him. You shall do the same with his ass, with his garment. You shall do it with anything that your fellow or your neighbor loses and you find. If you see your fellow's axe or ox fallen on the road, do not ignore it. You must help him to raise it." And here comes the important line, "You shall not remain indifferent." Lo tuchal lehitalem. You can't make yourself invisible. Well, it's been a roller coaster world over the last months. If I hear one more time the word unprecedented, epic, or biblical, every day we have a new event. And some of these events, as we've discussed on this Challenging Torah, have been very, very painful for the Jewish people, painful for all minorities, painful where I ask, where is the basic goodness in a human being? Lo tuchal letalem. You will not remain indifferent. A hurricane struck that was truly of epic proportions, the coast of South Texas and Louisiana, and no one remained indifferent. And we got to see the Torah in action. And it was not clergy only who showed up in little buses to help in New Orleans. And it was not just lawmakers talking. It wasn't even basically FEMA, who takes a while to get its act together. People did not remain indifferent. Within minutes, it appears. Actually, we know that J.J. Watts, the football player who was stuck in Dallas and couldn't get home to his beloved Houston, went online to raise $200,000 and raised $13 million in 36 hours, directly from people, as he pledges to take that money, no matter what government agency is involved, and make sure it gets to the people. And he's, of course, working with now FEMA and Houston Mayor, etc. People took responsibility. They brought boats, they brought airplanes, they brought helicopters, they brought buses, they brought power tools. Unprecedented, for me, is not the word of the hurricane. I'm afraid we will see others. But what we got to see was the human spirit. It wasn't just Jewish, it wasn't just white, it wasn't just black, it was everybody. In a city where there are many, many undocumented people, because it's a heavily Hispanic city close to the Mexican border. Houston, it was clear. People were reassured, we're not going to turn you in for lack of status. We're not going to ask for your papers if you come to the shelter. And there are pictures all the last 2 days of people in shelters singing gospel, letting psalms of praise come out of their mouth because they're alive. Stories of rescue after rescue of people who went back in. Whether it was with a helicopter or a canoe, and saved people. You shall not remain indifferent. Lo tuchal lehitalem. Now, a few days afterwards, when the water is receding, and we really did see a biblical Noah-like event, and we know in the story of Noah, Noah just got his own guys on the ark and didn't help. Not true here. We helped. We stood together. The very best of humanity came out in this crisis. And ironically, it is the portion of the week that says, Lo tuchal letalem. You shall not remain indifferent. The Torah portion ends with a warning about Amalek. Amalek is the embodiment of evil, and it says, you will remember Amalek and what he did to you. When you left Egypt, how undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary and cut down all the stragglers in your midst. Remember Amalek. Blot out his name. Don't forget. It would have been really easy to let the stragglers and the sick and the old and the lame and people of a color you didn't like just drown. I mean, there were 9,000 rescues just of the Coast Guard, and that didn't count the Cajun Navy and all the volunteers, right? And now they are going house to house to make sure there's no stragglers left behind. They don't know if they'll find bodies or people who've managed to survive up in a little hole in the attic for the last 3 days. Tetze, when you go out, we are proud today to be Americans, to be part of this country, and to be part of humanity. We got to see, in the midst of terrible rain, the sunshine. Have a good Shabbos.